Namaskar. Hello and welcome to P Guru's channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. The GunnersSight crew is here in full strength, and let's welcome them. General Harimohan Iyer, General Raj Shukla, and General R. Shankar in that order of speakers today. Namaskaram, sir. How are you?
नमस्कार.
First class.
Thank you.
Very well. आयर जी कैसे हैं आप?
Did I say General Harimohan Singh again? I'm
No,
so
you
sorry
did
about
not.
that.
That's okay.
But you are going to roar like a lion today. General Harimohan Iyer is going to start the ball rolling here. Over to you, sir. This is his subject.
Thank you very much. See, when I came today, I came well prepared to be the tail ender. So I've been made the opening batsman. So when the opening
You're going to be the Chetan Sharma who scored 100, sir. You're going to be the Chetan Sharma who scored 100.
So when he comes to bat up the order, he generally swings around. So I'll try and swing around some things. So when I came prepared, I knew what General Shankar and General Shukla's mind are. So I wanted to be the devil's advocate today. So I may be totally on a tangent to what they'll bring out because I wanted to give the other side of the picture, which I know both of their minds as far as defense budgets is concerned. So I'll speak on the other side. So why 1.5 trillion? He made a huge announcement. And as General Shankar says, today the one thing which everybody wants to know early in the morning is what has Trump said last night. So that is where we are all so intrigued by his announcements and declarations, bearing the one which he posted on the Truth Social today. I don't know whether it is actual or somebody has engineered it, but that having said, I feel all these announcements are, if I look at it, they are just a political line. And why do I say this? I was reading for today's talk. So this indication is there was an expectation that the budget will go up to 1 trillion next year from 990 billion or something which was in the current fiscal. It will exceed to 1 trillion next year. So he made an announcement that he is allocating he wants 1.5 trillion to be allocated. Now Mr. Shri is best person to say this because he stays in the US, but the president has a very limited say as far as budgetary allocations are concerned. It has to come through the Congress and the Senate, and if it all has to come in 2027, it also depends on what is the color of the Senate and the Congress post the midterm elections, if at all they are held. So there are so many ifs that are happening as we talk about America today. So having said that, this 1.5 trillion is a new spanner in the wheel which President Trump has thrown, and everybody wants to know what should India look at. So when I look at it in a manner that we should think of what we need to do and where we are, and we should not get off track or sidetracked by an announcement which a president of the United States does. By and large, our requirement of defense budget is for our own threats and deterrences which are affecting us, which is primarily in our northern and western front. We are a nation which does not have any global aspirations. We don't have any power projection aspirations. So when I look at the US budget, US defense budget, it has a multifaceted line in which homeland security is a very small contingent. The majority component of US defense budget is supporting their large contingents which are operating from numerous bases across the world. And it requires a huge amount of funds to keep these bases, operational and also active. And as things are today, whether you look at the Central Command, which is fully in action in the Middle East, or the Pacific Command, or the Southern Command, which was, concentrating around the Latin American belt, and also is Pacific Command, which is constantly under threat of the Chinese, Taiwan, and the areas around that. With that kind of threat procedure, if somebody wants an extension or increase in his budgetary allocation, it actually sounds to logic. To that extent, I'll grant it to President Trump that he's made the right sounds. Does India have to react to it? I don't think so. Because in my mind, I believe budgetary allocation are based on three issues. One is what is the fund which is allocated, what is the kind of capability this fund is going to translate into, and what is the kind of capability we are capable of absorbing in that financial year. And it cannot be a knee-jerk reaction that suddenly you say, I'll increase my budget next year by 5% and we'll be able to do A, B, C, D, E. Because it takes time for capability development to get translated into actual integration and induction. And having been in the system, like General Shankar said, for quite a few years, by and large, Indian budgets have not got strained because of lack of funds or lack of financial support. India's acquisition plans have never got stuck for lack of financial support. At least I don't know of any one case where we were struggling because we didn't have money to buy. Most of the time, we are struggling because our own procedures, in terms of our bureaucratic methods of pushing cases, are not time bound. We get stuck because we land up in taking up a case which don't materialize as far as capability demonstration is concerned, in terms of trials and various kind of bureaucratic tests that we add to any amount of capability that needs to be brought in. So those are the problem areas, and it cannot be resolved by just having an increase in defense budget. General Shukla, I know, has been always saying that there is a substantial requirement of increase to maybe 3 to 4% of the GDP. I'm sure he's going to bring it out later when he comes on. But my way of looking at it is, are we capable of spending that kind of money in a manner which is relevant to us? Which in the current circumstances, I don't see it happening. Yes, we are a little short, but that can be done by properly allocating budgets, properly allocating the various heads where we get stuck. We need to look at methods to shift funds from various heads and ensure that the entire defense budget is fully utilized. That is where we fall short and end up surrendering a huge amount of funds at the end of the year. Even in the last fiscal, I believe a few crores here and there were surrendered back to the Consolidated Fund of India. So that having said, I don't put that issue of as far as shortage of funds as far as we are concerned. When we look at the US defense forces, there I can take out global basing, deployments, expeditionary readiness. They need to look at all these. And the PPP value, the cost of maintaining a US soldier vis-a-vis cost of maintaining an Indian soldier is way, way, way different. The cost of maintaining US equipment, cost of maintaining Indian equipment is again a totally different ballgame. So as I look at it, we need to look at pragmatic method of what we need against which front. And here is where I go again to say that there is an urgent requirement of having a theaterized based approach, where there needs to be a very specific capability based theater command, which can thereafter pull out as to what it actually needs to meet its aspirations. In that view, a pragmatic budget for a period of 4 to 5 years needs to be looked at, so that by the time those capabilities translate into induction values, they can be financially supported at the right time. And that is where we totally lack, because we start with a fund and then we try and match it with our requirements of what we can do within a year. And at the end, we end up that we are not able to fully exploit the kind of funds that are made available to us. In that, I must mention, in the last 5 to 6 years, there have been 3 tranches of emergency procurements which have been given to us. So that is something which is very clear to say that we are not visualizing our requirements well in time. And that is why most of the time we have to reach at emergency methods to meet our financial requirements, which is not a very a good thing to happen in a long run. One odd case of emergency requirement is fine, but to have a series of emergency procurement, and I believe EP4 is now being rolled out, another 25-30,000 crores worth of equipment is going to be bought from various sources. So this knee-jerk reaction is something which needs to be culled out. A proper roll-on plan of capability management has to be worked out. And it has to be theater-based. So what is applicable in the northern front may not be of relevance on the western front, may not be of relevance in the Indian Ocean region security. So keeping all these issues in mind, I feel Indian defense budget needs to be carefully articulated for a period of time. And thereafter, that minimum fund level has to be allocated every year, irrespective of whichever dispensation is in power. This should be something which should be a bare minimum that needs to be binding on the governments which are in power. The last thing which I would leave in the first round is, in our defense budget, the huge amount of sundries which are involved. I was seeing something today The Indian MOD employs the largest number of man force, even larger than the US. We employ almost, I think, 3 million people or 30 million people. It's a huge number. And we have a huge pension bill, we have a huge pay bill, which almost takes care of almost 50% of our budget goes into this. So there needs to be a method in which we have to articulate what portion of the budget is extremely necessary for capability development and how much can it be absorbed in which financial year, and accordingly structure the revenue and capital budget accordingly. And the last metric which I would like to say is conversion depends on allocation, how many contracts you can do, and how these contracts can translate itself into induction. So I will leave the first round over here saying that I believe this $1.5 trillion is a number. We should take motivation from that the Indian economy should also translate itself into a number which India needs over a period of 4 to 5 years. And that becomes a possible forward-looking budget as far budget allocation as far as defense is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. General Raj Shukla, I have a question for you, sir. My read is that India's budget currently is $80 billion, 80. And even assuming it was 800 United States, it was 110. You can give a certain amount of exclusion for purchasing power parity. I completely agree. But the weaponry you buy, you have to pay the same market price. So keeping that in mind, your thoughts on what India should do, sir? Over to you.
Yeah, so see, you're absolutely right. I support Trump's 1.5 million military enterprise totally. 1.5 billion. Sorry, trillion dollar. Except with one caveat. And that is, I think it was Barack Obama who said that the US must live up to the power of its purpose and the wisdom of its restraint. The power of its purpose, I agree totally with Trump. If he ever chose to seek my advice, I would just caution him on the wisdom of his restraint. There is, this business of president of Venezuela, missiles in Sudan, Syria. This bit has to be a little restrained. Otherwise, I agree with the Trump logic totally, because it flows from common sense and conviction. So let me try and explain that, and then try and say why it is so important in the Indian context. So, I tweeted a couple of days back that this $1.5 trillion military enterprise was central to the Dondro doctrine. Dondro is a replication of the Roosevelt corollary, which means that the Western Hemisphere is the American hemisphere, not only in terms of keeping outsiders out, which he's doing very well. I mean, this is a signal to China and to Russia that keep out, but also to take care of wrongdoers in the Western Hemisphere. And it is my belief, and I would very urge the viewers and everybody else to listen carefully, the focus on the Western Hemisphere is merely to secure a power base for projection into the Indo-Pacific. I have great regard for Trump in this regard. In this regard, he is not an isolationist. His long-term game is to ensure that the Chinese do not have hegemony in Asia, which is entirely in the Indian self-interest. The Chinese should not become a hegemonic power in Asia. And see, what do we see? So in this Cold War, what is the division of labor between the Chinese and the Russians? The Chinese have said, our economy, our technology combined with your military power, and we'll take care of the Americans. And it seemed to be working. In the tariff battle, when the Chinese hit back, in the technology battle, Trump retreated. But in the military sphere, see the reverses that the Dragon Bear have suffered. Syria, Iran, now Venezuela. And Venezuela will have a whole lot of implications on Chinese penetration of the Western Hemisphere, Cuba, Colombia, so on and so forth. But finally, Trump is not an isolationist. This base is being projected to settle the argument finally in the Indo-Pacific. Remember, Trump started this whole business of taking on the Chinese openly in his first term. So that is the long-term argument. People say he's very friendly with Putin. See what he did to Putin. The CIA definitely has fingerprints on the Valdai attack. The CIA and the American military had fingerprints on Spiderweb. So he's poking the Russians, but telling the Europeans, you take care of the Russians because you can. You are rich enough to take care of the Russians. Spend 5% of your GDP on defense. And we will strengthen power projection in the Western Hemisphere, but ultimately the argument will be settled in the Indo-Pacific. And it's not only Trump, but two wise men behind him, Marco Rubio and Elbridge Colby. So this is the long-term game. The long-term game is China. Now, why is this $1.5 trillion American military, why is it important? The numbers, of course, are consequential, but what is even more critical is the fact, now this is very important, see how the Americans position the instrument of force in their strategic calculus. And here is something that India should consider. I have said many times on your show, they take talent from around the world, Elon Musk of the world, into the university system, which creates technology and wealth. And this wealth is used to nurse those 800 military bases, a global military footprint. And see what it does. It underwrites the dollar. See what happened in Absolute Resolve. The Absolute Resolve business was to say that, this Madura linkages with the Chinese will not work. And this de-dollarization effort, those cries have simply died out. So the military is directly linked with the dollar. It is enabling resource access. I'm told this control of this 300 billion barrels of whatever Venezuelan oil, you have got a great access to resources. All this was going to China. Would it have been possible without a military enterprise? So those $1.5 trillion are not wasteful. Also see what's happening in Iran. I'm told when the revolution, 1979, when the revolution came into being, one Iranian, what is the currency, rial, was equal to $1. Today it is 1 rial equal to millions of dollars. The consequence of that is that the central core base of the Iranians, the Bazaris, the shopkeeper class, the upper middle class, which was the central core base of the Iranian Ayatollah regime, is now turning against them. And why has it happened? Because of those 12-day strikes, apart from other reasons. It has weakened the regime. So I'm saying the military is used in pursuit of the larger economic objectives. It underwrites the dollar. It determines, currency equations. So it is a very sophisticated system. It is not just the $1.5 billion piece. But what Trump has done is that he has made this $1.5 trillion enterprise at the heart of MAGA. He started speaking of the need to rebuild the military in his first term. Presidents before him had decided to roll back the space component of the military with all that wokeism. Trump was clear. He combatized the space command. He made it an independent service. The space guardians now are equivalent to sailors, soldiers, airmen. And you have seen the effects of this in Operation Midnight Hammer and now Absolute Resolve. So this man, you may call him a real estate dealer, but he has a fine understanding of the instrument of force, how militaries should be used. He has changed the lexicon of the US military. They no longer talk about GSQRs, AONs. They talk of outcome and lethality. This is what militaries are meant to do. His statement on the Apaches has been misinterpreted. What he was saying in that whole statement is that when Prime Minister Modi asked me for Apaches, I have to offer lazy excuses, 5 years, 10 years. Why should Apaches take 10 years? I agree with him totally. This nonsense of AMCA taking 15 years, nobody responsible, no accountability. He's saying, why should F-35 take 6 years? Make them in 3 years. And so he's making changes in procurement. He's getting talent into the military. He has got warship production under the White House, under his nose. He has entered into a special agreement with South Korea because he knows that the Americans are lagging in the warship production with China. Golden Dome, he has pledged $3 trillion and he has said no lazy timelines 2035. First operational effects in 2028. So he understands the utility of force. He knows how valuable the US military is to him. And I don't know, Sri Iyer will know this better. He says there's no dearth of money. I'm getting $17 trillion from tariffs. So he's a sensible chap, very commonsensical. And as I said, he understands the utility of force. He's using it to good effect. And now the whole point comes to India. What did Chanakya tell us? अगर शास्त्र को भूलोगे संस्कृति खो दोगे, शस्त्र का त्याग करोगे तो राष्ट्र ही खो दोगे. We keep eulogizing Chanakya and follow none of his directives. So either let's stop worshipping Chanakya, or I must disagree with my good friend Hari. What is this? We can't spend money. I mean, great. So we are so inefficient that we can't spend even 1.98% of our GDP. This is bureaucratic nonsense. So I'm saying India must make up its mind. If the instrument of force is valuable to you, I'm sure we have smart enough people to spend whatever is given to us. You know, in our case, the lexicon has to change. The Prime Minister should call the CDS and the Defense Secretary and say, listen, I want the capability to take out Hafiz Saeed. You tell me how many billion dollars, I'll give it to you. ये सब argument बाकी बंद की सर AON, SHON, GSQ. This is what Trump is doing. If India believes that DGISI is the cause for terror, we must say that, all right, do we have the capacity to take out people like him, extract people like DGISI? And I'm not saying it in a jingoistic manner. This is a military capacity. What do you need for this capacity? If you need $180 billion, take it. This is exactly what Trump has said. He said, what is this 950, 960? I give you $1.5 trillion. And now the military is accountable to me. When I tell you extract Maduro, don't make excuses. So he has given the money, and see how brilliantly the US military has responded. So it is this connect between the instrument of force and the nation's top enterprise. We must give our Prime Minister the military that he needs, and we must give our nation the military that it deserves. A well-oiled ministry with adequate funds expands political options. You know, so this is the whole argument. The people who should make the case for a strong, well-resourced military is the MEA. Our ambassadors will benefit with powerful pleats. But here the argument is totally the other way around. If I have a strong military, my foreign policy will not be constrained. So my whole argument is, you please make up your mind. But these excuses that we trout out, what is the point of giving us more money when we can't spend? Are we so stupid? Are we so stupid that we can't spend the money? What kind of arguments are these? So, and all the things that we said cannot be done in procurement reform and all that, the Americans have done it. They've got talent in. They have said outcomes, lethality. Hexit, Marco Rubio and Trump don't talk of GSQR, AON and all this clerical nonsense. They talk of lethality, war-winning outcomes. And so the good way to analyze all this is also, and there Hari is right, we must analyze budget 2026. You know, this revenue capital is an accountant's metric. IFS can't define how defense budgets will be spent. What is this revenue capital? All this accountant's metric. We should look at this budget in terms of how much are you spending on platforms, how much on AI, how much on quantum. This is what the IFA should tell the FADA should tell the Raksha Mantri, that, sir, we are not spending enough on AI. We are not spending enough in quantum. What is the revenue capital? Any clerk can do that. So I'm saying that, a time has come now to relook at the way we position the instrument of force in our strategic calculus. And if we think that the instrument of force is important to us, then we must do much of what Trump has done. And the last point that I would like to make is this. I've been making it many times. Let me reiterate it. India is now in the big power game. You never know who is your adversary. So we must have global strike capacities. And I don't want to be more pointed than that. We should be able to deter anyone, including Mr. Trump if he turns rogue tomorrow. So we really need to step up our game. The warnings are loud and clear. Sindoor was a wake-up call, and I'm not making a jingoistic argument. I would be so happy if these arguments came from the civilian space, because when they come from a military man, you tell me, general, warmongering. I'm not warmongering. I'm making a case for solid deterrence and not warmongering at all. And in that sense, I think Trump exudes a lot of common sense in his $1.5 trillion enterprise, and it is astutely connected to the MAGA plan. It is astutely connected to kick out the Chinese and the Russians from the Western Hemisphere. And largely, I think he's very shrewd. He knows that ultimately this argument will be settled in the Indo-Pacific. And the long-term game of Trump and the MAGA camp is to ensure that Chinese hegemony is contained in Asia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And we now have, a transformed Sunil Gavaskar who's going to bat like Virendra Sehwag today. General Shankar, of course. General Shankar, maybe a few months ago, you and I talked about how the best way to bring down a hypersonic missile is, and that is to catch it on its way up, not on its way down. Now take a look at what is happening with Oceanic. They have deployed Oceanic along the border of Ukraine and Poland just to make a point. And US didn't have a response to that. I'm just setting the context, viewers. I'm not taking sides here. I would like General Ravi Shankar, his thoughts. Where are India's priorities? Sir, I'll tell you this. If US spends 1.5 trillion, China will be also forced to spend. Russia may not be that much keen on doing that because they're already stuck in the quagmire of Ukraine. But China will be forced to spend. Guess where they're going to experiment all their new technology? India. Over to you, sir.
Well, it's not so simple the way you put it, but let me put certain things into perspective. Why has all this happened? In fact, I would like to first and foremost, what General Shukla and what General Harimohan have said are absolutely correct. I'll put it in a different perspective. We'll get it from somewhere else. Go back. It was Xi Jinping who said, "I'd like to have the biggest military on earth, the strongest military on earth, the most modern military on earth." He put timelines 2027 to 2047, whatever. And he's been increasing his defense budget by 6% every year. It's not a joke, and it's compounded over years. Plus an equal amount of matching budget, which is being putting into his paramilitary forces and the internal security budget. So security as a whole, if you see the Chinese budget, military and is a hell of a lot. And if you look at it, the stated military budget of China is about say $250 to $300 billion. But the unstated budget is another that much. And you add that, put the PPP figure in, it comes to what USA has been spending. And that is why USA has been struggling to catch up. We talk of technology leap, PAO, all that nonsense, and that then people have been talking of USA, slipping back and declining and all that nonsense. What has happened now? Like I said, I'm going to this whole story on a different angle from what General Raj Shukla and General Harimohan spoke. What happened now? We forgot that the US military is a completely professional military, blooded military. It knows what it's doing. And it's prepared to take risks. And it is not prepared of failure. It is not worried about failure. It has failed many times in history, we know that. But still it is prepared to take a risk. Still, Trump, the politician, is prepared to take a risk. Risk-taking ability is of the very high order. And that is where he's left China out of the game completely. Because China doesn't have the risk-taking ability in military sphere. Hard power is all about military. Economy, a lot of people are talking. But if you go back in history, it is military which makes the economy. Mercantilism is all about militaries. Military is your main tool of power, and that's what Trump is teaching us. And he's made a very clear thing that look, this year I can only spend 1 trillion. Next year I will spend 1.5 trillion. And this is not a new story he's been talking of. He's been saying I will brook no expenditure on my military because that's my main instrument of force. That's my main tool of power. And I'm going to wield it. And he's prepared to wield it. And the moment he started wielding it, the others are all scampering. We are saying, oh, he does this, he does that. But he is doing it for his country, as simple as that. When you wanted to do, you did it for Sindoor, you're a king. And he is doing it now in Venezuela. He is doing it absolutely in North Atlantic when he's boarding Russian tankers. And Russia has not done anything about it. And that Waldai strike, okay, or for that matter, he'll take over Greenland with the force of his military and economy, whatever. Military as a tool of power Trump has put it back at the top. Economy, technology is all later. I should get my job done for my nation. That's what he's done. Second, I mean, the requirement of 1.5 trillion or 1 trillion and all would have come up at some point of time from the military. It's not new. Every military wants more money than what it is always given. It's a historic thing. But here is the first time it's the politics which is driving the military. The politician, the political executive is driving the system. It says, look, I want this to be done. He's very clearly given out a national strategy. Read that national strategy. What General Raj Shukla gave out so eloquently, it's there. What has he said in that? He said, I want the Western Hemisphere. No non-hemispheric power can be loafing around here. Nothing. Then I want to put China inside the first island chain, not beyond. Beyond, I'll be there. Inside, he can exist inside. That's it. That's his thing. That's in 2 words. And I'll use India in the Indo-Pacific, and Europe can do what it wants. It has to spend 5%. It spent 5%. Now, what has he done for his own budget? He's hiked it by 50%. It's a big hike. As a politician, why is he doing it? He is driving the military. When after all, General Shukla has written a book of civil-military fusion. The first step of civil-military fusion is politico-military fusion. He's generating it as a politician, as an executive, as an elected head of the government. What does it do? It drives capability. It takes capability to another level. Now, everyone in the planning process knows, look, I have to spend this much money. I have this much money. If I don't give matching capability to this money, I'll get a kick on my backside and I'm out. All this nonsense like DEI, equality and all that is just thrown out of the window, which no force needs. A strong force needs political backing, and he's giving it to his force. Right? And he said, okay, this is the money, achieve this for me. He's very clear. There's no 2 ways about it. In the process, naturally, as part of civil military fusion, you spend so much money to get new capabilities so that you can reach up to Mars. Technology hike will be there. And in a country like USA, which has gone to moon in 1964, please remember, when did Neil Armstrong set his foot on the moon? Okay, today China is talking all this. We've forgotten that China has forgotten most of the technologies which China is trying to invent now. USA has forgotten many technologies which China is trying to invent now. So they're going to another level, and that is being funded. You see the kind of fillip it's going to get within the system. I don't know whether he's going to spend 1.5 trillion or not. Whether it's good, bad, or ugly is not the point. It's good for him. You see the effect it has already had. We are discussing it. Oh, how will it help? I mean, there's a domino effect. If he's going to spend so much, China will also get into that race of spending. If China gets into the race of spending, I have to match it. If I have to match it, Pakistan will also start doing something. There's a domino effect. There's a whole security chain which is triggered off. So there is a very clear way he's adopted. I'll not, go further as to what General Raj Shukla mentioned, but let's come to our own system. Are we clear about all these things? Or are we still stuck 1.5% of GDP that Babu with ye wo? Our entire system is Babugiri. We are not outcome oriented. At the end of the year, I need outcomes. At the end of a 5-year cycle, I need outcomes. I want to be a major power, I need to put money. If I have to create technology, I have to invest money. And we don't have that sense to invest money or into our own technology. And I'll give you an example. This I came to know 2 days back. The cost of building a metro line in India per kilometer is something to the tune of about $30 million per kilometer. $29-30 million per kilometer. In any other country, it is 7 to 8 times more. So I'll put it the other way around. If you import anything from that country, you import that metro from that country, which is going to make profit, it's going to be 15 to 20 times more than what you make in your own country. If that is the equation, I fail to understand why we are not investing into our own research. Look, I always say, it's not the size of the dog which matters. It's the fight in the dog and the bark in the dog which matters. Okay, it doesn't matter if you spend only 80 billion or 100 billion or all those figures which we keep quoting. Is that giving us outcomes? Is that giving us outcomes to sort out Pakistan and China and put some fear in everyone else? Here, you touch this dog, it'll bite you. We are failing at it. We have failed at it miserably. I don't mind saying it openly. You look at our aircraft programs. It's an apology. After 70 years, you don't have, your squadron strengths are shrinking and our air chiefs have to go and say, please give it to us on time if you said so. There's something fundamentally wrong with our system. Right? I mean, I can say this with a lot of confidence because I know what goes into research. I'm involved in it. I get 100 tweets these days every day. So well done on Ramjet, all that. Ask General Hari and we have struggled not to produce the technology, to convince our people that this is good for us and that this technology should be deployed everywhere. This is the world's best technology and I have to convince people. यार एक अंधे को ना पैसा दोगे तो खर्च भी कहाँ करेगा, उसको देखता नहीं है. जिसको अंधा है वो अकल भी बेच दिया उसने. This is our status. Time to realize it. It's good to say we did this and Op Sindoor, ye wo, all that. Because we don't have the capability to, what Raj Shukla keeps talking of, civil-military fusion. What we have is diffusion. We don't think. We don't think for tomorrow. Forget about today. We don't look, can you imagine you have a budget of say 1.5% of the GDP for defense, which is absolutely low. Out of that, you also return money unspent. Can it be worse? That's what Hari has said, no? And actually so. And I've been seeing this natak.
and
I call
just
it natak.
and justify it.
And justified why we couldn't spend.
Feather in the cap.
And it is
Savings.
incidentally, let me tell you now. No, let me tell you something very serious. Seriously, it is engineered that this money goes back to CFI, that is Consolidated Fund of India, because that money is then reappropriated somewhere else within that. It is deliberately held back. One has seen this. If after what Mr. Trump has done, if we don't wake up and smell the coffee and don't understand that what Mr. Shriyar has said, okay, bhai, now Xi Jinping can't go and fight with Trump, he'll get a kick on his backside. Okay, whom will he fight with? He can't go to Taiwan. Taiwan to dur raha. So he'll come here. Are you ready for Xi Jinping? Will you be ready for him in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years? You have done tremendous. There's no doubt about it. But can you do more? If you're the fastest growing economy in the world, don't you need the fastest growing military in the world? If you don't have the fastest military in the world, you will be like China. China was the fastest growing economy, fastest expanding, global reach. He went and sat in Venezuela. Trump gave him a kick and he's back in Beijing. Minus Venezuela. No oil there. Tomorrow he supported Iran. Iran might fall any day now. He'll put 2 more midnight hammers out there. And वहां का oil भी गया काम से. फिर China क्या करेगा? He can't do anything because he doesn't have a military. And I've always been saying, this Chinese military doesn't have capability. Your military capability is not how many machines you have, how many numbers you have. Is your capability to defend your interests all over the globe. Has China done that? Has China defended even one of its interests anywhere in the world in the past 1 year? No. So it doesn't matter how much your GDP growth is, how much your overall GDP is, all that. But you have to protect it. Despite all this story, I mean, you think I'm talking out of this thing? Take yesterday's diplomat. There's a story which has come out which says, can China win a war? Can China fight? Something like that. I'm forgetting the headline. I was reading halfway through it, when this whole thing. He can't. Do you want to get into that kind of a situation? By underspending? It's okay to be underspending. I have no problem. But at least be fully equipped to spend. If you can get value out of what you spend, you will be much more. As a rough guide, I'll tell you. This ramjet which we are developing, it'll cost us X. I can bet my bottom dollar. You go out and buy the same thing, you'll get it after 10 years and you'll still have to pay 10 times more. Right? That's the equation. This is just an example I'm giving. Isn't it wise for us to spend in our research? Increase the thing. Isn't it wise for us to, you're right. Can China's military actually fight? This is our 8th, 9th January. So there is a major lacuna in our system. It's not a matter of allocation of funds. It's the matter of capability and the structure to make use of those funds well. And not get, fall into small, generate fights between services, fights between competing interests, or generate competing interests. You need to have priorities. What capabilities you want by which timeline. I mean, let me lead you on to a state secret. Do you know that the priorities at which we want our items have no correlation with how we procure it? They don't have. Show me one guy who's serving or retired who says, no, General Shankar, you're wrong. And I'll argue with him. Our system needs a major overhaul. I have no doubt about it. The present system has tremendous incapabilities hidden inside it, layered and hidden. Unless we are able to sort that out, there's no need of giving extra money. Otherwise, you continue with what we have and be trudging along. We'll get this capability. Because within this rut in which we are, we'll get what capability you invested in. With all the leakages, peakages, and everything inside that. You'll keep paying pension bills. Nothing. I mean, have we ever thought of monetizing our defense? You know, you say you don't have enough defense budget. Can you take money from the market? There are methods. But that demands modern thinking, modern financial methods. We are hardly there. You need your military industrial complex to, respond to that. You're still in the license Raj of I'll give license to only these chaps, not to others. If you think license Raj has gone out of the equation, sorry. Go and ask a startup in India what he has to struggle to come up. Okay, 90% of the startups which fail don't fail because they don't have money or this thing. They fail because our system doesn't allow them to go forward. In any field. It's not only in defense, in any field. I'll stop here. I think I've spoken a little too much, maybe a little too on the negative side, but that's the truth. That's the truth. We need to have the capability of listening to the truth. Back to you.
Thank you so much, General Shankar. You know, the Indian Administrative Services, the IIS group, see, they think of it like a pyramid, viewers, and the IIS sits at the top. And these are the people who must be watching Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister a lot. There is a word that he says, CMG, call me God. They need to really, really think about this. Modi tried to bring in lateral entry. What happened to that?
Look, it's not a matter
I've gotten tired writing books about how badly the Indian Stock Exchange is.
It is not his mistake. It is not his mistake.
It's not.
I blame the political executives for this. The Indian Administrative Service is a very responsive service when the political executive wants it to be so. I'm making a loaded statement out of experience. And I've seen this Indian Administrative Service work when that, you said yes, minister, no? When that minister says, I want this outcome, he'll say, yes, sir. Yes, minister. And he'll produce it.
Well, I'm very happy to be proved wrong on this, sir. Let's go to the next round. General Harimohan Iyer, this time I got your name right. I feel like I got it right. So sorry, you are a sing etched in my mind. General Harimohan Iyer, you've heard General Raj Shukla and General Shankar talk about what India needs to do. Sir, some definite steps that I think India needs to take now. And one of the important points that General Raj Shukla brought out, Eldridge Colby. Who's Eldridge Colby? He's the guy who wrote the NSS. I believe he's a grandson of a person who was the director of CIA, if I remember correctly. Be that as it may, thanks for mentioning that, General Raj Shukla. There is whatever Trump is doing now is all etched in NSS that came a few weeks ago. And before all this happened, they called in all the generals, close to 800 of them across the world, and they gave them a tongue lashing, Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump. The army didn't like it, but look at the execution. Anyway, we're going to talk about more things, why Greenland, why Iran, and so on and so forth. Well, I'd like to yield the floor to General Harimohan Iyer. Sir, 5 minutes, if you don't mind, 5 minutes for this round. Over to you, sir. You have a lot of questions also.
I just want to amplify certain things which I tried to say in my first round. I hope I'm audible here. Okay.
Yes, yes, yes.
Firstly, there's something called a Defense Acquisition Council. It's supposed to be the apex body which decides what our military needs. In the erstwhile days when General Shankar and me used to work together, it used to meet at its own will and power, and one has to wait like hell that, an announcement has been made that DAC is going to meet, and then we used to be trying to run and meet their requirements. One of the good reforms that I saw about 7 years back was they said DAC will meet every month. I think the last Monday or last Saturday, one of these days they are fixed. They said they'll meet. So I was very excited with it. Now I want to put across my point in a different way, which General Raj Shukla doesn't accept it. Now you go back last 5 years, sir. Take every DAC meeting and see the amount of money or projects that have been approved. Just multiply it. And then translate it into 5 years defense budget. It will not be even 20% of the defense budget. Sorry, the defense budget will not be even 20% of the amount of projects that have been approved. The problem with the Indian thing is we take a project, the government accepts the necessity in the DAC, it approves it, and then that whole chain starts. This 114 Rafales that we are talking about today, this case came up way back in 2010 when the MRFAs were being discussed. In 16 years, we are still struggling to get it past the RFA stage. 2001. 25 years it has taken, and the necessity has been placed. Yesterday I was reading somewhere that HAL is going to produce 5 Tejas in a year. My God, by the time they finish the third order, Tejas would be an antiquated equipment. The towed gun program, General Shankar was a colonel when he started it. He's been 10 years post-retirement. It is not even seen I will say still in the procurement stage. It has not even had a request for proposal gone out. It has taken 25 years for us, and necessity has been established way back in 2001. It has not changed. 25 years we are struggling. They say, money hai, aap leke aao. And the same people will put it in a loop. If at all today the M777 Howitzer has come, only me and General Shankar know how many hurdles we have bypassed, how we have pushed that particular case through. We have physically moved files to an officer's, to a rank of much lower level of officer. One has gone and stood and pushed a file, then only it moved. The problem what I am trying to bring out today is, it has to be a political decision. A politician has to decide what he sees India as. And like General Raj Shukla says, if you are the 4th largest economy, about to become the 3rd largest economy, you cannot look at the Indian armed forces as it were, let's say, 20-25 years back. It should be 20-25 years already done where we are. And it has to take a huge amount of effort today. But the biggest problem is today nobody wants to put his hand into it. Everybody is worried. Kal government badal jayegi, inquiry khul jayegi. So everybody puts the loop back into it. So we play musical chairs. The file goes, some endorsement is given, it again comes back. I'm telling you, 25 years the towed gun program has not moved. It's still there. 25 years our FRCV program has not even reached the drawing board. In 2013, when I was a young brigadier, I was told by 2026 the FRCV will go into production stage. And now 2026, we are still not even on the drawing board. So that is where we are. Now let's say tomorrow the government decides and say, okay, I give you 4 times the defense budget next year. What can you buy out of it? How are you going to spend that money? Because the projects aren't there. It takes for 24 months minimum time for an RFP to translate into induction. And if it has to be an Indian company, the production rates can't be matching what an international company which has been producing it for ages to do. So if a Rafale, if France can produce 100 Rafales in a year, India's Tejas unfortunately can produce only 24. And that is where we are struggling today. 80% of our equipment, indigenized equipment, has critical components which have to come from outside. And that is where the negotiations get stuck. So I'm just trying to put across when I said it is very easy for Prime Minister Modi to come tomorrow and say, okay, next year onwards or 2027, India defense budget is, let's say, 1.5, $150 billion. De dega. And what will happen is $50 billion will go back to Consolidated Fund of India because we won't be able to expend it. The problem lies in both places. It is not only the bureaucracy, the military has also got his hands into it. Every person who becomes a head of an institution wants to change the world. Every guy wants to become Superman. He wants to change the place from where the sun rises. So, acha banaya khichdi, he puts it back into production again. And it is, I'm being very frank about it. We have all done it. Incidentally, even I might have pulled down 5 or 6 projects which were ripe, try to start it again. And in this process, we don't realize that we are playing into the hands of somebody who doesn't want to spend the money. At the end of the day, what happens? He says, "Bhai, tumhe to paisa diya tha, tum kharch nahi kar rahe ho." There was an argument, sir, I'll take 2 minutes, and General Shankar is aware of it. There was an argument of fixing the amount of our ammunition holding about 8 years back to a certain levels, with an assumption that ladai nahi hogi. And the basic thing given in that was we don't have storage capacity to hold that amount of ammunition. All right. अब स्टोरेज कैपेसिटी बनाने के लिए उन्होंने जो एक रोड मैप दिया, that went on to 15 years. So they said in 15 years the capacity will come. So after 15 years we'll reach that levels. And in 6 months' time you had Uri. Another 2 years' time you had Pulwama. And we were struggling. I think we mentioned in your program only that today we are reached at 91% or something of our ammunition requirements. It has taken us 12 years. My problem is today the money is not the issue. The issue is the capability. Karna kya hai? Or the government says, okay, now we have what General Shukla says, global strike capacities. Okay. We say, okay, Indian Ocean region, we will dominate. Up to Diego Garcia, up to what's it called, Seychelles will be all ours. We'll have force projection going there. Kya jayega? Do you have your organization ready for it? And it comes back to the same thing, jayega kaun? Who's responsible? Where is the theatre command? Where are the troops under it? What kind of equipment does he need? Structure hamara bana nahi hai, to kharcha kya karenge hum? That is the problem, sir. And what is happening now is emergency procurement mein chiller de dete hain. We buy something and then it goes into social media. Like everybody is going balle balle about Op Sindoor, itne drone bana diye, itne ye bana diye. But have we structurally reformed ourselves? I don't think so. These 114 Rafales, by the time it enters, if it enters, I use the word if because it is still under thought process. From thought process to result into an RFP, it will take 4 years, sir. Watch it. And after 4 years, Rafale will become extinct. Or we'll get an outdated technology back into India. We need to look at it at the much larger level. Like I said, a roll-on program has to be made. And thereafter, it should be put as there will be no change to it. This will be the end result in 2030. And accordingly, budgetary allocation should be already put on ground. You do that, you will have a structured army in 2030. Some levels. If you don't do that, you'll keep beating around the bush, end up with whatever 1.1% of GDP as your defense budget, and stay happy that what ladai nahi ho rahi hai. But like General Shukla says, someday Xi Jinping will exert, and that is the day when you'll be running from pillar to post trying to find karna kya hai. I have experienced it in 2020, so I know how difficult it is to make ends meet. Someday we can narrate that story. I think it is still due when I was discussing that day. Someday we can discuss on that issue how we were running from pillar to post in 2020 trying to meet our requirements. I leave it here, sir. My last point is we have to ensure that the industry and the academia are ready to take on the projects which will translate into a force capacities. If you're putting everything under negative import list, if you say everything has to be indigenized, it is not going to happen tomorrow. It needs time and it needs effort. And it needs a lot of leeway. People have to become flexible. People should be willing to take a large amount of risks as far as expenditure statements, etc. are concerned. People should be ready to take failures. Today, one ramjet misfire happens, and bells ring everywhere. Kaise ho gaya? Kyun ho gaya? What have you done about it? Not realizing that we are trying to manufacture something which is not existing in the world. I'm speaking my heart out. So we have to accept that some things will fail. Today, a PSLV has failed. Doesn't mean that we should scrap the PSLV program. We have to find ways to ensure that it doesn't happen next time. So my larger point once again is we have to understand what we can do, what we need to do, and structure ourselves accordingly. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. About satellites and satellite launch vehicles. The satellite launch vehicle is a lot more complicated than the satellite itself. Probably something that Rahul Gandhi knew. That's why he keeps talking about the escape velocity from Jupiter. Be that as it may, I just wanted to mention that in humor. These things will happen, and we learn from it and we move on. General Raj Shukla, sir, your thoughts?
So, see, my thoughts are these. On the 3rd of January, when President Trump at 10:46 said good luck and Godspeed to the military which was going to execute absolute resolve, what was the compact between the political executive and the soldiers, sailors, airmen, marines, space guardians? It was that I have resourced you the best. Good luck, do your job. See what happened. In India, what is the argument? What are we telling our soldiers, sailors, and airmen? That there are 100 things we are supposed to do. We cannot do 80 of them for all kinds of stupid reasons, but we will expect you to do a job. How fair is that? When will these arguments end? And let me make one more point. I would disagree with my two esteemed colleagues. We have blamed the politician for far too long. Who more senior than the Chief of Defense Staff, the Chairman DRDO, the Chairman HAL, the Defense Secretary, and the 3 service chiefs? If you can't do this, then do we need to go to a contractual system like the Americans have, that they go down the line? Dan Kane is not even commanded, you're not a theater commander. You pick a man who says, sir, I will do this. Pick Hexit. Get a major. Hexit was, I don't know what, a major or a lieutenant colonel in the Marines, and get him. They will execute. They are better than General Raj Shukla, General Hari Mohan Iyer, and General Shankar, who made all the excuses. It just has to end either way. Get people who say, sir, I will do it in the next 6 months. It is not the job of the Prime Minister to create theatre commands. It is not the job of the Prime Minister to reform DRDO. Who told the Indian military that you go to DRDO for your space program? It's a stupid decision to the extreme. Upgrade your space agency, get a good, smart 3-star. We have enough of them. Get them with your startups, you'll launch into the LEO. So I'm saying that, there are enough things to be done. We must stop these excuses. Look at HAL chairman. I don't blame him. You appoint him at 58 in an aviation industry where the long-term vision has to be 15 years, and he retires at 60. Great job. So the day I come, I know I announce AMCA knowing that my grandchildren will not have to implement it. No accountability. Or my bade program. And so somebody was telling me they've just taken out a job requirement for AMCA engine or one of those programs, 25,000. So 25,000 a month, you'll get an aviation engineer. I mean, stupidity after stupidity. When will we end all this? And for how long can we justify this? Let's end this. यार अब समय खत्म हो गया ये सब बेवकूफियों का. We have enough talent in India and enough intelligence in India. Only the intelligence is working the wrong way, and we know, we are Indians, we know our brethren. वो गड़बड़ करने में तो हमारी कोई मतलब, we are Nobel Prize winners की इसको वो करना, और इसी इंटेलिजेंस को आप अच्छी चीजों में लगा दो, सब होगा, सब. I know it, Hari knows it, General Shankar knows it, सब कुछ हो सकता है. So we must create these dronery flanks and link it to Sudarshan Chakra. Now Sudarshan Chakra will be an ambitious, it will need a lot of funding, so it's not happening in one day. It is going to be an ambitious program. But if you do all this stuff, get the right people, it can it can easily be done. See, and what is this argument कि हम फाइल नहीं साइन करेंगे, पहले ये सिविलियंस तक कन्फाइंड था, अभी मिलिट्री भी वो आर्ग्यूमेंट लेने लगी है कि मैं फाइल साइन करूंगा तो 3 साल बाद मेरा क्या होगा. भाई मत बनो आर्मी कमांडर, डोंट बी डीजीआरटी. Who asked you to be DGRT? If you cannot do this, arguments have to end, yeah. And some kind of risk taking is everywhere. How do we answer our youngsters? How do we answer our middle peace officers? So all this just need to be end. And the defense secretary, CDS, DRDO and all have to be told that, boss, this is serious business. The last point, everybody, let's take R&D. We were talking of R&D. All army commanders, at least Geosync R-Track has powers of 15 crores per item, unlimited. I have exercised them. If you put the R&D powers of all army commanders, they will be sufficient to take care of our needs. वो भी हम exercise नहीं करते हैं. And this was created by General Shammi Mehta. So I'm saying, see, we have all these litany of excuses that we have gathered. They just have to go bit by bit. And the most serious question is this, that we are actually in a pre-war era. The military component of the power differential with China is $450 billion every year. That is one part of the problem, the budget. But if the other cultural structural corrections you don't do, the lag is growing. Do we want to be hammered, hit on our head? Let's just do an audit of various cities. Where I am sitting, where General Shankar is sitting, we can be hit by missiles. Look where the Iranian leadership is hiding today. Madura was in the middle of a military compound. AD systems all over. Cubans protecting him. This is serious business. So words fail me when I say that we can't make excuses any longer. We just have to do this stuff. And that's all I can say. It just has to be done and it must be done.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, General Shukla. General Ravi Shankar, I have seen a lot of very capable, accomplished test batsmen in India. To me, Virendra Sehwag is at a level on his own because he almost always takes the pitch out of the equation. I consider his 201 plus not out in Kandi on a raging turner where the remaining batsmen together scored only like 120 runs. He scored 201 not out, carried the bat through the inning. That was his best innings in my opinion. Sir, another Sehwag-esque ending from you requested. Over to you.
Okay, I'll give you just 2 points. We've lot is said and done, and it's right. And I go with both my younger colleagues. Absolutely right, 100%. In fact, they've spoken from the heart. Having known them from long, they've spoken from the heart and absolutely correct. In the Army, Navy and the Air Force, Armed Forces and the MOD, today the story is all of EP, emergency procurement. We are in the 4th cycle of emergency procurement in the past 2 years. Not even past 2 years, 1 year. Op Sindoor onwards, as emergency procurement started. Is there something wrong with us? Or is there something right with us? In 1 year, you have 4 cycles of emergency procurement. That means you're not bloody planned anything.
Can I just say something? This is humor in uniform. कि DPP से कुछ नहीं हो सकता तो वो बनाए
Shortcut.
अभी EP बना दो.
This is horrendous. I am openly saying this. For this one thing, like what General Raj Shukla said, I think that CDS and all the 3 chiefs should hang their heads in shame. I have no doubt about it. To have even allowed this. You can't allow it. That everything in this army is being procured without a plan. Emergency procurement is something you resort to in an emergency. So in the past 1 year, you're only resorting to emergencies, and what all you planned earlier is all gone down the drain. There is something fundamentally wrong with our system in this, and we have to understand this. Okay, the second example. And this is humorous. When I was early into this business of ramjet making and all, I was finding it very difficult to convince people that we can do it. एक तो नया है. They'll say, yeah, you are an interested party. Why is this fellow coming? He wants money. He wants a project. He wants post-retirement benefits. What does IIT have anything? Everyone says IIT, IIT. यार ये इनको क्या पता है? इनके पास तो कुछ capability नहीं है. All these questions. So I used to go to a lot of people. यार ये ले लो, ये ले लो, ये कर लो, ये वो. So there's one guy who told me, young chap, he says, sir, आप इतना कष्ट क्यों कर रहे हो? राइट आप जाके ना ये एक इजरायली को ना ये मैं आपको बुला लूंगा यहीं कहीं घूम रहा है. दिस वाज इन मानेकशॉ सेंटर. उसको बुला लेगा यहाँ घूम रहा है. ही इज द लोकल इंचार्ज ऑफ आई थिंक IAI और समथिंग लाइक दैट देयर इंडस्ट्री. सो उसको ये समझा दो सर, वो ले लेगा, आप बना दो, वो पैसा बना देगा, इजराइल में बना दो, उसके बाद इंडियन आर्मी खरीद लेगा. उसमें क्या will Indian Army and everyone will buy it. It'll come out faster. This is a fact. It's a system. This is our system. I must say it with a heavy heart, but this is our system. Of course, I didn't agree to it. At times, I felt I should have agreed to it. Right? And we'll go where we have to go. But I think we need to have a great rethink. And nothing like Trump's 1.5 trillion, budget which is given to his army. I think we need to take a leaf out of it. I think my prime minister has to sit and think. My defense minister has to think. And those 4 gentlemen who the CDS of the general rank, the chief of army staff, the chief of air staff, and the chief of naval staff, the 6 gentlemen I've spoken of, and along with the nice talking external affairs minister who talks a lot of sense, these 7 people should sit and say, this is what India needs and let's get it. It doesn't, the buck stops with these 7 gentlemen. I do hope they live up to it. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you so much, sir. I have had some informal pinging of who watches P Gurus. Again, going back to Yes Minister, where Sir Humphrey will explain which segment of the society watcher reads which newspaper. So P Gurus typically is watched by Ministry of External Affairs. It watched perhaps by PMO, perhaps by the Home, and a lot by Defense. And that is more because of you, esteemed general, because you are on my channel. People watch it. But it doesn't go to the entire society, start of the society. This program should be having 10 times the viewership what it is having. I mean, what has been set in motion, we are not even understanding, we are not even comprehending the magnitude of what America wants to do. This is where things stand. I'm very, very sorry to say to them, if I take a step back, this is like the arms race that never used to exist. And if you build all these arms, somebody will itch. Somebody want to try this thing out. Then what's going to happen? We'll see. We'll wait for the, I don't want to predict that part. Let's go to some questions. Generals, I have about 15, 17 questions, and I'd like to rifle through them quickly. 30 seconds. We are GunnersSight. We know how to rifle questions through. 30 seconds per question, sir. Answers. That way we can make this thing quickly and finish in about 15 minutes. First question to General Harimohan Iyer, Pawan Singh. Respected sir, according to current India's growth and GDP, what would be the fair share that we should spend on defense? As I was watching news about talks and approval of 3rd aircraft carrier.
I'll keep it absolutely short. Minimum 3%, ideal 5%. Minimum 3%, ideal 5%. But unfortunately, we are sub 2% as it stands.
Sir, General Raj Shukla, you wanted to say something on this?
See, what I wanted to say was this, how did this Trump military project come into being? I'm told it was debated through Project 2025, and see what kind of minds. Elbridge Colby, Shyam Shankar, Hexeth, Trump, and so many others. And they have, what you are seeing now is not just, the $1.5 trillion piece. All the things that we say that we cannot do in the Indian context, which even the Americans in previous administration said cannot be done in democracies, they have done. They have brought procurement reform. They have changed ACRs. American general staff and the procurement bureaucracy is not going to be judged on how much money you have saved, by legality outcomes, change in those timelines. All these things we are saying in our context cannot be done. So I'm saying, I did not say that the three chiefs in CDA should hang their heads in shame. I didn't say it, and I shouldn't say it because they are friends. But what I'm saying is this, that lets the political executive say, bhai, ye hona hai. Agar aap karne ko tayar hai, to please become the CDS. Otherwise, don't become. If you're going to trot out the same excuses, even to the defense secretary and to all these other people. So that whole team needs to come together. It cannot be the CDS saying, मैं तो करना चाहता हूं, लेकिन वो देखो defense secretary क्या कह रहा है, या procurement वाला क्या कह रहा है. All this whole team has to come together, and this team has been in the making for 2 to 3 years. And then you see all these sensible things start happening. So that is really the point I wish to make.